What is up, my Fortnite gamers? It is XTR, and we are back with some tips for gold players. Now, these are going to be the biggest mistakes I see around the gold rank, but honestly, I see this at a lot more than just the gold rank. I have a few friends that play in gold, and when I play with them, I notice that these are the biggest mistakes that they usually make, and I even see this all the way up to Diamond Immortal. So, I'm going to go over these real quick, and we're gonna get started. So one of the biggest ones I see, when you are retaking and the spike is down, let's say the spike is right here, and the enemy team is, they're not peeking, they're not exposing themselves. Well, what do, right? You tap the bomb. So you tap the bomb to try and get them to actually come out. And especially in like a 1vx situation, when it's only you alive, you really don't want to do this. When you get the bomb right here and you tap the bomb, you need to make sure that you do not make any noise after you tap the bomb. Because if you step once, they're going to know you're off the bomb, and then you're just wasting time staring at these angles. I see this happen all the time. It's a really simple mistake that you can very easily cut out. Every time you go to fake the defuse, you need to make sure that after you fake it, you don't make any noise at all, because that will actually bait out the opponents, because they won't know whether or not you're defusing. Now, sometimes it might be best to to fake the defuse and then start walking over towards an angle you believe an enemy is playing at, and then go for a swing, and then you can go back and fake it again if they're still not peeking, or you can just try and stick it. But it's just very important that you do not fake the defuse and then just make a shit ton of noise afterwards. It's a complete waste, and it's a huge mistake, because they will not peek if they hear you making noise. Now, the next big mistake that I see is poor crosshair placement and poor pre-aiming. Now, it's not really as much poor crosshair placement that I see, but it's more so poor pre-aiming. Now, crosshair placement, in my eyes, is kind of split up into two different areas. And one is just regular like crosshair placement, keeping your crosshair at head level, and the other is actually having proper pre-aiming. So if I were to come around this corner, I would pre-aim it like this, because I'd instantly come out swinging at this angle in case there was somewhere holding it, and then I'd move up and I'd swing like this, and then I'd just keep working my way along the wall, and I'd be pre-aiming the entire time. And then I'd move like this, and I'd try and have my crosshair land on the next angle that there could be a player at. Right? It comes down to that more so than having it at head level. And this is a bit more complicated and a bit harder for newer players to grasp, because you have to learn the maps quite a bit. And you have to understand where people like to play. Like if I were to come around here, I wouldn't have my crosshair at head level, because if you see this, I come out and I swing out and I'm just aiming at the fucking sky. So something like this, you want to have your crosshair kind of ready to take that engagement. So I come out and my crosshair's automatically at head level down this corridor, and I'm already pre-aiming this angle in case there was someone there. You can jiggle it, or you can just swing right out, right? So it really comes down to having your crosshair at the right angle. And I see all the time that people will just only have their crosshair at head level no matter what. It's just always going to be at head level, because that's all they really know how to do. When in reality, you really need to make sure that, especially when you are going down these vertical engagements, and there's different elevations, that you need to have your crosshair at the head level of the area that you will be pre-aiming. So right here, it'd be around here, and then you move and it'd be around here, right? But adjusting for elevation in the map is one of the big things, and then pre-aiming certain angles that they can be on, and kind of expecting the angles that they can be on. You won't be perfect all the time, but it's very good to have your crosshair around the angle that you expect someone to be. Now, the next one I see is lack of comms. And it should be obvious, right? Comms are very important, but there are mistakes I see in the comms in every rank. Some people don't know the balance, and they just use comms way too much. Like if they're rushing A, they'll start like screaming like, "Hey, help me on A, I need help A, help me A, help me A," like over and over. It's like, just say it once or twice. They're rushing A, I need rotates right now, rotate please. And then obviously, if nobody's rotating, you can say it again, but don't like scream it over and over the microphone. And the other side of the coin is people that just don't use comms enough. Like if you are an entry fragger, it's very important that you have comms, because if you take this engagement here and you die and you don't say anything, your team might not even realize that you just died here, and they might not be able to get this trade. Maybe one person extra will walk out not even looking at that angle that you just died from, because you didn't call it. So you need to be very careful, and you need to be very sure. You need to be very sure that you are calling out where you are dying from and where the enemies are actually playing. You need to be very precise about your calls too. Try and exclude as much clutter as possible, and just streamlined call out of what you were trying to actually say. Now another one I see, and I see this one often, is poor aggression, right? And this one, I've talked about this one before, I believe, but I might not have. It's when you as the defending side are taking very poor decisions with your aggression. Like, you'll just, for no reason, like every round, you'll just push into here. You'll just push short. And there is a reason why you should be pushing short, but if you don't have info anywhere around the map, you don't want to do this, because there could be like 4 or 5 people here and you don't even know that. So you need to be very, very wise about when you are actually pushing into these angles. And I will say, if you have already expended all your utility, that is one of the best times you can get aggressive on the defending side. But if you still have a full kit of utility, you want to kind of play back. You want to kind of play safe. So aggression really comes into play when you are out of utility and you believe that there is nobody in this area, because then that is kind of free for you. And you don't want to do this shit every round, because if you do this every round, it's going to be very expected. If you do this once or twice every game, then the enemy team will kind of know that you like to do it, and they'll start putting a little bit more presence towards here, and they'll be a little bit more afraid to actually leave this area open. So just be very careful with your aggression. Don't do it too much, and try and be unpredictable with it, and make sure you don't have a ton of utility that you just run in and die with. If you're playing Brimstone, you have all your smokes, definitely do not get aggressive for no reason. It's a very bad idea. Next up, I have improper peeking and improper swings. Now, there's a couple swings that you can do in this game, right? You have the kind of half swing where you just kind of swing out like this. You have the wide swing where you run out like this, and then you have the shoulder peek. These are like the 3 main peaks that most people use. So it's very important that you know the distinction between them, and you know when to use them. You use a wide swing when you really want to take an opponent off guard. You use a shoulder peek when you're getting intel, and you know there's someone there, and you don't really want to fight them, but you can try and get a kill here by shoulder peeking. And you use the last one, the mid swing, when you believe the enemy is expecting a wide swing, but this isn't really that useful. It's just mainly a normal swing, really. So once again, you have shoulder peeking, you have normal swings, and then you have wide swings. Now, it's very important that you don't wide swing for absolutely no reason. If you know there are 2 people here, you don't want to wide swing out and just try and take fights. That's not going to work. If you know that there's a player here watching it, you can shoulder peek, but don't peek over and over and over and over until you die. Shoulder peek a couple times, get the intel that they're there, maybe try and get a kill, and then don't repeek it. Maybe fall back to another angle or wait right here and just kind of listen. Just kind of listen, see if you can hear any footsteps walking up to your position. Then you can flash out, you can go for a kill. Just make sure you're not repeaking over and over for no reason, because when you repeak, the enemy team knows where you're at. They know what angle you're playing at, so if you keep repeaking over and over, eventually you will probably die. And wide swinging can be good, but it's mainly just a surprise factor of actually taking a wide swing that works. And it's a very risky swing to take. A normal mid swing is fine, where you just swing out and you go for the kill, that's fine. But you really only want to do that when you know that there's only one player there. You don't want to do it into like multiple people, because if you get tagged and you're out in the open right here, you can't really fall back very effectively. Now, we got another one coming in, and this is poor post plants. You don't want to plant the bomb right here if both of your teammates are playing in short and in long. If you decide to plant it here, that puts your team in a position where if the bomb starts getting defused, they have to come out of their safe locations. They have to start running up, clearing out angles just to get to the bomb. And at that point, the enemy team knows exactly where you're coming from. So you want to, if you're playing short and long, you want to post, you want to plant like right here. Now, one thing I will say is if you have the safety to do it, one of the most effective ways to plant the bomb is the area on the site in which it is exposed to the most amount of angles. So if you plant the bomb against this wall, you have effectively made it so the enemy team has to deal with 4 different angles when they actually try and defuse it. The enemy team has to worry about CT, heaven, short, and long. It's planted for everything. Now, there's downsides to obviously planting like this in the fact that you have to have the entire site clear and your CT and heaven blocked off. And also all these other angles you need to have presence in, right? So most of the times, people will just plant right here because it's the safest and they've already cleared site, but they haven't really maintained CT control. So this is kind of the most common plant because it's the best one for this type of situation. But planting over here and in areas where you are basically forcing the enemy team to deal with a ton of pressure and deal with a ton of presence from a ton of different angles, it's extremely strong. So just keep that in mind. You always want to plant the bomb where the bomb is exposed to the most amount of angles, but alongside with that comes the fact that you want to be very careful and make sure that you are not exposing yourself while you are planting the bomb. Now the next one I see, and this is the final one, is over rotations. Over rotation is basically when you rotate way too early for absolutely no reason. If you have 2 players on A and they have spotted maybe one down long and they know one short, and there's a little bit of utility being used on A, that doesn't mean rotate off B. That means you wait for a little bit more intel from your team before you actually make a conscious decision. You want to be very certain that the enemy team is actually committing to a site before you decide to rotate. If I decide to rotate for no reason off of B site, say I'm playing Sage and I just leave B site and I don't tell my team, so B's completely open. And we have 3 playing on A. If they decide to back out of A and we are not aware, they could have already had one player push all the way through into B site and then they could be anywhere in this part of the map that I'm circling right now. They could be anywhere in this area and we just wouldn't know about it because I had left B open for no reason, because there was just a little bit of pressure towards A site. Now putting pressure towards the sites on the attacking side is meant to draw rotates. So just be very careful about that. They want you to rotate. That's kind of their plan most of the time. Maybe not at the lower ranks as much, but at the lower ranks, people will still rotate out if they feel that they're being pressured too much. So be very careful that you are not leaving super early just because there is a little bit of presence on the other areas in the map. You need to maintain control of your area that you are designated towards. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So hope you guys enjoyed. Bye.